For as long as anyone can remember, F1 has been a sport characterized by behind closed doors, gossip, and underhanded transactions. Team managers routinely report on rival squads to the press, and drivers routinely inspect one another's vehicles for illicit equipment. Folks in the F1 community are getting fairly fed up with the level of tattling that has occurred. Want to figure out why everyone seems to be sick of Lewis Hamilton? Let's just check it out in this video. Throughout the course of this season, both Lewis Hamilton and George Russell have been overheard on many occasions criticizing the performance of other drivers. Hans-Joachim Stuck, a former Formula One driver who has won the Le Mans 24 Hours race 3 times, believes that all of the drivers now competing in the event should step on the throttle rather than snitching on one another. Because the circuit rules are so stringent, it is common practice for some of the drivers to communicate with their teams during a Grand Prix to let them know if someone in front of them or behind them has violated the limits in an effort to earn that person a penalty for their infraction. In qualifying, a driver's lap time is wiped clean if they go above the track limitations. However, during the race, drivers typically receive a time penalty after exceeding the circuit limits an excessive number of times. Stuck is of the opinion that this behavior, which has been exhibited by drivers such as George Russell, Lewis Hamilton, and Charles Leclerc among others so far this season, must be put to an end. The driver who has won the Le Mans 24 Hours competition 3 times has urged other competitors, including Lewis Hamilton, to push on the gas and concentrate on themselves rather than becoming consumed with trying to snitch on their fellow competitors. "I don't agree with what they're doing because of the track constraints," he said in an interview with Service TV. "I won't identify names, but I wouldn't declare over the radio that this driver or that driver has broken the track boundaries," the announcer said. "I'm sorry. That is the purest kind of snitching. Instead of that, the boys ought to step on the gas. That is how I feel about it. Because they're competing, the drivers don't have to stop what they're doing to grab a cup of coffee after the race, and there are moments when you simply have to sit back and let the race play out. The boys, on the other hand, need to step on the throttle. That is how I feel," he went on to say. Because they're racing, the drivers don't need to stop what they're doing to grab a cup of coffee after the race, and there are moments when you simply have to sit back and let the race play out. Complaints were broadcast over the radio more frequently in 2021, which may have been a direct result of the heated competition that was taking place between Red Bull and Mercedes at the time. The races in Saudi Arabia and Abu Dhabi in 2021 were the pinnacles of Hamilton and Max Verstappen informing their respective race engineers of everything they believed the other driver to have done. Hamilton and Max Verstappen both notified their race engineers of everything they believed the other driver to have done. The petty bickering has, without a doubt, carried over into this season, but at least nothing is spoken about between the team executives and the race director anymore. This season, Russell has been the driver who has complained the most about other drivers striking him and breaking the rules on the radio. The British driver has complained about both drivers hitting him and exceeding the regulations. Toto Wolff instructed the former Williams drivers to get on with it during the French Grand Prix after they complained multiple times that Sergio Perez forced them off the road. The former Williams drivers were driving for Force India. Hans-Joachim Stuck, a former race car driver who competed in Formula One, has expressed frustration about the actions of some drivers in recent weeks. He won't mention asthma by name, but he does make a sly allusion to the fact that it's continuously about turning curves while the driver oversteps the bounds of the track. In addition to other things, this took place during the Grand Prix that was held in the United States. According to B Sport and a talk quoted by Speed Week Stuck, the following should be said. "I don't understand why certain drivers are blaming other drivers for going above the track restrictions, and I don't see why they're referring to other drivers. I won't mention any names right now because it's possible that it will happen, but I don't have to announce over the radio that he has beyond the track's boundaries. So you are a pure anecdote. I think it's important that these men get moving as soon as possible." Although Stuck did not specifically address not taking, the conversation appears to be mostly about Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen. At the United States Grand Prix that took place in Austin a short while ago, Max Verstappen broke the race's rules 3 times in the closing stages of the competition as Lewis Hamilton chased him down for his maiden win of 2022. The Mercedes driver was trying all in his power to call attention to a fourth infraction, which would have resulted in a time penalty being assessed to Verstappen, but his efforts were in vain. A few weeks earlier, at the conclusion of the United States Grand Prix, Hamilton finished in second place, one spot behind Verstappen. The Briton was presented with a fantastic opportunity to take home his first victory of the year, and he did not pass up the chance to do so. Over the radio, Hamilton repeatedly informed Verstappen that he was in violation of the track's rules for racing. In the end, Verstappen was also awarded a black and white flag for his efforts in this regard. Nevertheless, a short while after, it was also Hamilton's chance to do so. After Hamilton slid off the track multiple times, Verstappen took it upon himself to participate and point out the turns to Hamilton. As far as Stuck is concerned, this is not an effective method for getting over each other. Stuck believes that race management may be quite difficult at times and that drivers should be given more opportunities to compete. According to the Germans, this would also prevent scenarios like the one that occurred in the United States involving Hamilton and Verstappen. For instance, there were 2 accidents in Mexico, but the drivers did not stop at a coffee shop or anywhere else for coffee, the report said. The guys are competing, and there are times when you have to turn the competition into a race. Being forced to speak from personal experience. In Formula E, I continue to serve as the principal racing commissioner. When there is only one person in front of the television, it is really challenging to come to any kind of sound choices about anything. Because of this, Formula One made a terrible decision when they put Charlie Whiting in the position to follow up with a pupil. In modern times, it is also about quite different things compared to what it was in the past, such as the distance to the safety car and other such considerations. Formula One was somewhat harmed as a result of this. Many drivers on the grid are motivated to try to get an advantage wherever they can, since they risk having their qualification lap time wiped out if they go over the track restrictions during qualifying and incur a penalty if they rack up too many offenses during the race itself. However, Stuck wants them to break away from the norm, which is an indication of his dislike of grassing in Formula One. Lewis Hamilton was accused of snitching during the United States Grand Prix, and F1 icon Hans-Joachim Stuck has implicitly called out Hamilton for his actions. During races, high-pressure situations and severe track limitations have caused an increase in the number of drivers who report to their team radio that a competitor in front of or behind them has passed them, but Stuck wants this practice to end. The driver who has won the Le Mans 24 Hours competition 3 times has urged other competitors, including Lewis Hamilton, to push on the gas and concentrate on themselves rather than becoming consumed with trying to snitch on their fellow competitors. "I don't agree with what they're doing because of the track constraints," he said in an interview with Service TV. "I won't identify names, but I wouldn't declare over the radio that this driver or that driver has broken the track boundaries," the announcer said. "I'm sorry. That is the purest kind of snitching. Instead of that, the boys ought to step on the gas. That is how I feel about it. Because they're competing, the drivers don't have to stop what they're doing to grab a cup of coffee after the race. And there are moments when you simply have to sit back and let the race play out." Well, what are your views on this scenario? Tell us in the comments. And before going, make sure you hit the like and subscribe buttons to enjoy more